somebody you hear every day, and I know it's on tape delay right after our live program ends at 5 o'clock. But you get the Doug Gottlieb show, and it's a chance to listen to Doug and keep up with Doug. And as I mentioned earlier, um, well, let me get to this after. I don't want to bury the lead, so let's get into the leads first. And maybe we may go a little bass backwards on the lead. We're going to go back to last weekend, and on Friday, a phone call from Springfield, Massachusetts, to Tulsa, Oklahoma, to the home of Eddie Sutton, and the whole clan was there. Steve, Scott, and Sean there to share that moment. Coach Sutton told that he's going into the Naismith Memorial Hall of Fame. One of his players, one of the greatest passers and floor generals in Oklahoma State basketball history, Doug Gottlieb, who has a national radio show, has been a national basketball analyst for college basketball, has a big voice nationally, and used that voice quite often to voice that Coach Sutton belonged in Springfield, Mass, and the Naismith Hall of Fame. And so, good job, Doug.
I don't know if I did anything, but thank you.
I think you did.
Well, I don't know. We got to talk about this Gundy thing too, because this is going to.
We will. That's why I said I was going backwards. We'll come back around to the Gundy deal. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, listen. I have no idea what amount of help I was, but as I I feel like Coach is deserving, and the family's been incredible in that they've all said, like, no, you've been a huge part, and this is about the players, and the play. Coach didn't make a basket, and that's great. Okay, there's lots of coaches out there, lots of good ones. There's very few Hall of Famers, and he's absolutely one of them. He did so many and continues to do so many things for me personally, for my family, and for all of us. Just being associated with Oklahoma State as a university and with Eddie Sutton's basketball program, changes your life. And if you can survive it, you can survive a practice. He said you can do anything. So, I mean, it was relief. It was joy. I mean, I cried like a baby. I was so happy for him. And, I think the big question that I've been asked by a lot of people is, like, does he know? Does he understand? He does. And, it's not perfect. Perfect would have been 10 years ago. And he'd stand up there and you'd be like, man, I'd go play for that. When you listen to him talking, everybody still want to listen to your program, Robert. Like, he just had this way of knowing, just commanding everyone's respect within the room, everyone's attention within the room. There's just guys that are natural coaches and leaders, and he was one. And then you combined in his ability to procure talent, his ability to build, to team build, to make kids tougher, and his ability to coach basketball, like all those factors. So it's about him and his family and all they've sacrificed to give all of us this unbelievable post-career and during our career experience.
I had the opportunity. I've met the Gottlieb family, and I had the terrific opportunity to meet your dad before he passed. When you were playing at Oklahoma State, and then even later on when we'd cross paths when we were on the road with the Oklahoma Storm, and thoroughly enjoyed getting to meet your folks, and I was at your wedding and all those things. But when I think about it, Coach Sutton, I know how much your dad revered Coach Sutton. I know when you came to the Oklahoma State program, Coach Sutton was not easy on you. I mean, he busted your chops good, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like you said earlier. If you can survive it, you're going to be better for it, and there's no doubt, that I know the Gottlieb family not only has a lot of, like I said, reverence and thanks for what Coach Sutton has done for them, but love. I mean, at the end of the day, there's a lot of love there.
No question. And here's the thing. My relationship with Coach and the Suttons is a real relationship. And by that I mean like real relationships have disagreements, arguments. Sometimes you don't talk to each other for a while. You know, you need to cool off. That's a real relationship. You know, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it was all, you know, dotting your I's with hearts, or whatever. You know, I know that there have been times, you know, even when I played, I was on your show. You remember when I played and I was on your show and I picked Texas to beat LSU in football, and like he wanted to kill me for it. He's like, you know these football players come to your games to cheer for you, and you have. I was like, I don't know, coach. They asked me, and I thought they're gonna lose. You know, so I mean that is as a snapshot. There were so many different, you know, other moments where, you know, he's either called me on the carpet or whatever, and you know, there's moments in my broadcasting career where I felt like he disagreed with what I was saying, or some or Sean did, or Scott did, or whatever. Like again, it's a real relationship. It's a real friendship. It hasn't always been perfect, but again, yes, there's love, but there's also a ton of respect, and I think that's super, super important to point out. There's a ton of honest respect for him and for what he believes in, how he coaches, how he handles things, and I think that that's the big thing. Look, and you know this better maybe than anybody because you spent time with us with the Oklahoma Storm. In that, what he was able to build and foster was amazing. And look how close we were everywhere we went on the road. All of those guys,
Yeah.
And when you work with the Storm, those were kind of different generations. Like I never played in college with Keontae. You know, I didn't play in college I only played 1 year with Brett. But you know, Brett and I mean, you know, to this day, like I know his daughter just got engaged, and you know she's going to Oxford, and she's currently at Oklahoma State. And I know about his son going to Navy, and I know this happens at other programs, but there was something special about how he built a family out of a team, and how we could depend on one another, and about how we were allowed to speak our minds, and about how we were allowed to push back a little bit. Not hardcore, not like Bob Huggins where you scream and MF back and forth at each other. But like I said, there's something really real about Coach, and maybe it's his flaws and that we know them. But I think that's one of the things that separates this and my friendship, my relationship, and our basketball family. It's not fake. We legit love each other. We care for each other. We fight with one another, but at the end of the day, we always fight for each other.
Well, and by the way, Interrogator, one of our listeners, texted us in and said, just remind Doug that a lot of us distinctly remember you gave him his first shot at radio on the air in Stillwater.
Oh yeah,
And oh yeah, and I knew. I told you back then. I said, yeah, I know you want to play pro basketball, but I'm just telling you, when you get in the media business, you're going to be a superstar. And then you bring up that Storm deal. Of all the things that happened, one of the things that I remember the most was when we took the team van, and it was the OSU crew. It was Brett, it was Pete, Adrian Peterson, it was you
yeah,
and me, and I think we may have snuck one of the coaches with us, so we weren't going to get in trouble by taking the van. And we go from Pennsylvania, where we'd played that day game for
yeah,
school kids, and we
yeah.
go up to New York to Yankee Stadium and catch the Yankees and the Tampa Bay Rays in a rained washout makeup game. Had a blast.
Yeah.
Sat behind home plate. In
That was
fact,
amazing.
thank you for
Good
being the
memory.
one and
Well,
said
I don't know if you
we,
remember this. Okay, so this is a great part of that story. Okay, and I know what you're talking about, just being in the van. But so we played in D.C. the night before. We played in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. So we played in D.C.
right.
and we had 2 or 3 cats from D.C. And so after the game, you know, it was like a neighborhood game kind of, and everybody rolls out and we go to a bar and have a couple of drinks. Darren McClinton, the other point guard, was, you know, he was like the master of ceremonies. It was awesome. So we roll in, and it's like, you know, midnight, 1 a.m. Hey guys, we got a game the next day. Let's get to sleep. And they called us and woke us up and said, hey, we got a game's at 11. Like, it's like 2 hours away. So it was like 8 o'clock. We all pile into the vans. We drive up to Bethlehem with Lehigh, Pennsylvania, to go play the game. And we're in the locker room and we're hungry, and we hadn't stopped to eat. And they're like, don't worry, we got you covered. All right, what do you got? They bring in hot dogs, candy bars, Snickers bars, and Cokes. And we're like, all right, so we eat it. We're playing in front of these. We're playing in front of all these school kids, whatever.
And
So we get
remember the
done.
coach for
Yeah, Daryl Dawkins.
Pennsylvania,
Daryl Dawkins,
Daryl
Pennsylvania
Dawkins.
Valley Dog. Sure, Chocolate Thunder. So we get done, and we're all getting ready. Like, let's get out of here. We can go catch this ball game. And we go over and say, like, hey, can we get our per diem for the day? And it was like $25 or something like that. And I never forget that I got $17.50. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, it's not that big a deal, but, where's the rest of the money? They're like, well, you had 2 hot dogs, and you had a Snickers, and you had a Coke. And I was like, yeah. Like, no, we took that out of your per diem. Are you kidding me? No. Like, so, but there was also another trip. We landed in Tampa, and we had the 2 Florida teams, and you drove the car. Keontae was shotgun. Me, Pete, and Scott were in the back. I mean, Scott, me, Pete, and not Scott, and Brett were in the back.
Brett.
Maybe Brett was in the front. I was with Pete. And there was a mandatory. Robert Allen did not want to stop. We made him stop. That we told were all great. It was. Now that was a good time. But the point, and I know you know this, is for people who are listening. Like it was. I didn't play with Keontae Roberts. I've never played a college game with him. Didn't practice with him. He didn't work out with us. But it was like we were best friends because we were all part of the same family. And I think a lot of you experience that when you go home for Thanksgiving or Christmas, or you go to a family reunion, or somebody you haven't talked to in years, whatever. There's something about blood, about kin, and it's a really special thing to be a part of. And yeah, I mean, I think that's where I get chills thinking about the fact that my basketball family is in the Hall of Fame. Like that's really dope. It's really cool.
Yeah, and hopefully August 29th, which is the weekend of the Hall of Fame ceremony. Let's hope that that won't have to be scrubbed. That maybe by then, even if they narrow it down, even if it's a select guest list, and I'm sure that will be tough. But I would definitely think you would be on that list. But hope to, especially with Coach Sutton, hope to get this done on schedule because we know his health isn't what it once was, and that, like you said, wish it'd been 10 years ago. All right, I know you're chomping at the bit, and yeah, I was on that teleconference yesterday.
Before we move on, I
sure.
do think that one thing that people ask all the time, especially when I'm in Stillwater, like they all knew he's a great coach, and I think that again there was I felt like, and you tell me if I'm wrong, I felt like there was a special relationship with my group. I don't know. We were just, again, kind of same thing. We were real. We all had fun. We were all kind of from mixed backgrounds, whatever. And but people always ask, like, well, what made him special as a coach? And I want people to know this. And you and I can have when we get close to Hall of Fame, we can do even more on it if you want. But the first week of practice, he didn't really coach. He didn't run the drills. He would occasionally jump up and point something out and explain why we're doing what we're doing. But for the most part, he'd sit over there and take notes and observe. And, then Micah would come over and talk his ear off and, maybe and coach would be half paying attention. But what I found was, he wanted to know. Jimmy Johnson has this expression, I coach all my players the same, different, because they're all different, right? And
right.
That was kind of coach, right? Whereas he took time. You weren't supposed to watch guys work out, play pickup, but his office was up there in Gallagher, and he'd always take the long way and walk and watch, and then you could see those guys peeking out or whatever. But Coach took these copious notes. He had beautiful penmanship, and somewhere there's notes on every player on what they do. And I'll never forget, like he pulls me aside after my first week of practicing for him, and he's like, we got to get you where you're going right a little bit more. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I know you like to go left, and yet, I was like, wow, you picked that up, did you? And it's, there are just subtle things to He wanted to know what kind of shots guys liked. He wanted to know, he wanted to see the interaction between guys. Because when you're in there coaching, having done it so myself, you do, thank you, you do miss it. You do miss things, because you're so caught up in what guys are doing. He watched the interaction. He would change up the lineups. That was his way. And then make no mistake about it, when he coached, and what he would do is, whether you put it in an offense or a drill or a defense or whatever, he didn't put most of that stuff in. But what he would do is he would come and correct and refine and point out, here's where you're supposed to be, and here's why you're supposed to be there. I mean, I can honestly tell you that he never drew up a play. Like Sean drew up the play. But he would take the whiteboard and point out specifically why the spacing and angles were such. And, I mean, the guy knew the game. It wasn't just that we kind of feared him and respected him. It wasn't just the players. It was the guy really knew the game. He really wanted to understand his kids. He was very relatable, even for a guy in his 60s. He's a special coach in that you could check off so many of the boxes that other guys just missed.
Yeah, I said this to Sean the other day, the two coaches that I've been around in my lifetime that I definitely believe, from watching and from being around it a lot, not just a little, but a lot, that could get players to play at their very best, Eddie Sutton and Gary Ward in baseball. And I don't know that I'll ever be around any other coach that had that ability to change guys for the better, to get them to be the very best of themselves. Those guys were able to get it.
Yeah, no, and then when you stop and you think about it, think about Stillwater and how really interesting and kind of blessed we are as Oklahoma State guys, right? You had Gary Ward, in anyone's conversation is the greatest college baseball coach of all time, right? Eddie Sutton in anyone's conversation with Mr. Iba. You got Jimmy Johnson. Hell, Les Miles is no slouch. And honestly, what Gundy has done is, I'll be totally honest with you, I think Gundy's done Hall of Fame worthy stuff. Considering, anyone who's invested in the history of Oklahoma State, granted, Mr. Pickens' money really, really helped, get it to where it was a fair fight, right? But winning at Oklahoma State and making it the expected norm to win 8, 9, 10 games is crazy. So I think there's something special about the place, but also all these men who coach down the street from you. It's pretty outstanding. Some programs get lucky enough to have one coach in one sport to have, and I didn't even mention John Smith. So it's pretty cool.
Well, and here's something, Doug. I'd love to try this on you because you are you think of yourself as a historian, as an analyst, and you put together complex opinions about a program. I think there's a case to be made that for the modern day Oklahoma State athletic department, there are four. If you were going to make a Mount Rushmore, the four people most responsible for where Oklahoma State is, and I'm not just talking about football, I'm talking about baseball, I'm talking about women's softball, I'm talking about golf, tennis, which Oklahoma State's a top 10 program now in men's and women's tennis.
Yeah.
Chris
does a great job with his tennis.
Eddie Sutton's one of them because when he took over the basketball program, the athletic department was moribund. It's coming off football probation. There was no excitement. Wrestling was about the only thing you could really get excited about. So Eddie Sutton, obviously Boone Pickens' money, Mike Holder and his leadership in the athletic department and what they've done in the part of facilities, and he's the guy that brought Boone Pickens to the table. And then Mike Gundy, with what he's done in football, has made Oklahoma State athletics, the entire department, a whole different entity than what it was when Eddie Sutton first arrived.
No question. And I would say it's like I tell those 95 guys, we get credit for, that building was built because of 95, you know, and whatever your thoughts on how big it is, whatever, it's probably a little bit too big, but that's because people were so excited after 95. And, I remember Coach coming and sitting on my couch, and they had the artist rendering of what was supposed to be a 10,000 seat expansion, and it becomes 13.6. But yeah, I'm okay with that. I mean, the whole thing coming together. Yes, he saved the athletic department. And I think that's probably, if there was a rift at some point in time between him and some of the other coaches when he was there, I don't think Coach ever said that. I don't think it ever came out of his mouth, hey, I saved the athletic department. But that was generally the feeling in that building. And then you had, hell, Mike Holder's winning national championships, but it just doesn't move it didn't move the financial meter until he brought Boone Pickens into the fold. And so I don't think, I think there have been so many other different great moments that got lost because how the economics of competing in college athletics and where Oklahoma State was, where the state was at the time. But yeah, I would also say that if we were being fair, there was a time after the Final Four, after both Final Fours, but especially after the 95 Final Four, they struggled for a couple years and we got it back going. And then that 2004 team, who knows what happens after the plane crash if they don't make that incredible run, and I don't know. I'm with you though. So you're saying your Mount Rushmore is Gundy, Boone, Holder, and Sutton. Is that what I had?
I think those four had more to do with where Oklahoma State stands right now as a university with their athletic department. That's the four that really have created what's there on that campus right now.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. It's amazing. Like, you go there now, and look, Robert, I did not go to Oklahoma State because of anything other than Coach Sutton, and I wanted to play at a basketball school. I was there. I was on campus for 16 hours or something. My visit sucked. I was supposed to come in on a Tuesday midday, spend all day there Tuesday, and then Wednesday game, and then Thursday fly out. I went to Oregon. They played Arizona, and my flight got delayed. I got in super late Tuesday. Sean picked me up, drove me to the Holodome, woke up to a nice little wafting from the swine farm and had some breakfast. Coach drove me around campus. I went to pregame. They beat Texas A&M. It's a boring game. Place is 3/4 full. But I don't know. I watched those guys practice. I watched them go through walkthrough. I watched them warm up. I hung out with Adrian Peterson. I knew Coach. I just felt like if they had a point guard, I believed in this guy, and he just had a way of what I've got in trouble for in my broadcasting career is one of the things that that Coach was able to always get away with. He was just a straight shooter, and I felt like when he sat there and he told me exactly how it would go, that's how it would go, and that's how it went. So, you mentioned the relationship my dad had with him. Like, they didn't always get along, and nor they should. He wasn't one of these guys that bowed to the whims of parents, but he'd worked with my dad had worked for him before, and so they did have a long-standing friendship and relationship. So sometimes he would sit with him longer than he should have. But my dad, I don't know if you know this, he wasn't allowed to sit on the lower level because he was always sitting there coaching in the stands and yelling out stuff. The coach moved him up to the second level.
No, I knew that.
And then my dad calls me and he's pissed. He's like, why'd you get me these tickets up? I was like, I don't arrange the tickets. So then he would sit down there in the student section. But, that was, again, like, these are all the things that Coach Sutton managed and did so flawlessly. He just did. He knew how to handle people. He knew everybody was different, and he treated everybody as they needed to be treated in order to, as you pointed out, it's really smart, get the best, whatever the best version of themselves is.
Yeah. Hey, you've been here longer than I told you. We were going to get you out of here. But I'm assuming you still want to comment on Mike Gundy's teleconference. So go ahead.
Look, I think there's a lot of context which is missing. I would say if I'm being honest. There's a lot of super left leaning, sky is falling media members that are my brethren that are going to crush him. I don't think watching OCN is the place, or whatever it was called, whatever that fake news network is. Like we've gotten this thing, and I understand different people view it differently. We got to say, like, mainstream media, like just media, just real media. And I don't know how we got to this place to where there's like a media that's for the left, or the media that's right. Like, look, it was really bad. The whole world has been shut down. 80% of the people are on quarantine. The numbers appear to be getting back in the, the curve is flattening or whatever. And I think if we stick to this thing, that we're going to be out of it sooner rather than later. I understand what he means. Like the economy has been destroyed. We're all feeling it. You got guys, coaches giving back money, which I've never had before. Executives giving back money, understanding that for the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months, like, economy. We're talking, 11 million unemployed, and this all happened in the last couple months. So
last month and a half.
I understand. I understand that what Mike Gundy is saying, which is like, hey, until we don't get back to work, like we're gonna, and honestly, I think President Trump has handled so many of these things so incredibly poorly that when he does say some intelligent things, it gets lost because he said so many unintelligent things. But the cure cannot be worse than the cause, and we have to be very cautious of, getting back up on our feet, and when we can do it, and when we do it right. But he's right. Like, people don't understand how a university functions, and this has been my thing with. I remember you and I we're talking back when Les Miles took a game. They played in Kansas City against Nebraska, and they took like $1 million. And that was a mistake, because when you play Nebraska at home, every hotel room is filled, every restaurant is filled, every bar is filled. Like that's how college towns survive. And without college football, we don't really have that. In addition to, you got the spring game, you got now summer workouts, and all of these people function, but they can't function unless students are allowed back in. I get it, and I get his frustration. I just think for a bright guy, he does live a little bit in a Stillwater bubble, and he needs to understand that there's some lines in there that don't come off, I think, the way in which he wanted to say it. I agree with him. We should be more positive. No. Hey, this thing is the problem with being positive is I think people fear everybody's going to come out of their house and we're going to screw this thing up. We're doing the right thing. There's some good that comes out of it. Like I'm in Los Angeles right now. There's no smog. There's no traffic. It's unbelievable. Right?
Wow.
Every day
Doug, I had a pilot friend of mine send me a picture. You know the interchange there by LAX?
Yeah.
I mean,
I drive it every day.
Even in the middle of the night.
Robert, I drive it every day. Okay?
Yeah.
Every day. Takes me on a good day.
I got an overhead picture.
Yeah, on a good day, hour 15. On a bad day, hour 45 to get to work. I can make it there in 40 minutes. It's crazy. Now, obviously, I want people to be able to get back to work. I don't want people to, but I also don't want people to get sick and die. And, I haven't been able to make physical contact with my mom, who lives, 15 minutes from me. And she came to our house, and she's like outside of our house and whatever. But, look, there's some good things that come. We have family dinners. We go for walks. There's some good stuff that comes out of it. And we're getting to the point where we're all like, all right, cool, we need to get back to real life. And I get it. But I do think that Mike has a tendency to look like the guy who lives in the bubble, and he'll be the poster child for, what's wrong with middle America, and he'll be a bit of a dartboard for the next couple of days until somebody else does something.
Well,
but
I
don't know what are your thoughts?
Well, here's the thing. I agree with everything you said. Okay, here's the thing though. It was an hour long. There were I want to say there were 13 people on it. A lot of the people writing about it weren't on it.
Yeah.
And the first 10 minutes was about the first responders, medical personnel, everybody, including his family, and all the people out there that are staying, quarantined and doing the social distancing, and it was applauding the effort of all of society. And then he got into his team, and then the question started, and that's when he got into, yeah, we want to get back to this. And he had May 1st, and that was a problem. That's what I wrote in my deal. We know May 31st because of the NCAA and the power conferences. Everybody has said no gathering, no recruiting, nothing till May 31st. And he had 30 days early, and so
Right.
he opened himself up. And there are going to be people in the media when you open yourself up. They're gonna go after you, and they did.
Well, let me. I don't want to interrupt. I actually think May
Yeah.
1st is a sensible target date, and I think here's the thing that it really irritates me about some people in my profession that cover sports, is that they think these kids are somehow abused by being around the football program. And this is their whole charge is like, you got to pay these kids, and here they are, unpaid labor, and he wants unpaid labor back on campus. Like, are you the dumbest human being on earth? Are you? Because why don't you spend a day in one of these kids' lives? Spend a day with them when they're at home with their family, and then spend a day with them when they're in school. Because when they're in school, they eat a train table, which is the best food you can possibly get. No disrespect to all the restaurants in Stillwater, okay? But outside of mom's special meal, like, it's unbelievable food, right? You get the best training. You're safe, you're comfortable, you're protected. You get to train. You get to be around your friends. Like, it isn't. People are way better off being on a college campus. Like, my son asked me, it's funny. Last night we were laying in bed. He's having trouble sleeping, and my son asked me. He said, "Dad, what if you could change one thing? If you go back on one thing about college, what would you do?" And I said, "I would stay in Stillwater. The two summers I didn't." And he's like, "Why?" I go, "Because it's the best." It's just the best. You're around your friends and your buddies, and your apartment's paid for, and you eat good food, and you hang out, and you train, you work out, and there's not all the other stuff of home that takes you away from what you want to be doing. You're just hanging around people your age and working out and playing ball and hanging out at night. That's what you do. And he's like, "That's awesome." I was like, "Yeah, it's awesome." And that's what Gundy was saying. Those kids need to get back to the normalcy of being college students, of being 18 to 22-year-olds. And I don't think it's crazy. I do think that people bring in their biases. They bring in their biases, and they're so anti whoever's making the most money, and they think these kids are being somehow abused. That's my personal thing.
Yeah. Hey, we got to let you go. You got to get to
Yep.
your day job, and again, best to your family, especially your wife, who's the best part of that group there. And I appreciate the time, and congratulations to everybody, the Sutton family, all the players, including yourself, that played for Coach Sutton, and then the people who had a voice that helped get this done, because Coach Sutton definitely deserved it. Thanks, Doug.
Anytime, Robert. See you soon.
All right, Doug Gottlieb.